Teresa listened to her friend Chelsea and could not believe what she was saying. Chelsea reported that she'd seen Teresa's husband with another woman in the park today and had been trying to prove to her friend for an hour that her husband was shamelessly cheating on her. "All right, Chelsea. When Felix comes home today, I'll ask him," Teresa said, still refusing to believe Chelsea. "Are you crazy? There's no way that he would confess it to you." To convince Teresa that she was right and to prove that her husband doesn't miss a single skirt, Chelsea even offered to start a fictional page on a social network and thus test his moral stability. But Teresa refused and asked Chelsea to leave because she needed to be alone and think things over. Barely waiting for Felix from work, Teresa immediately burst into tears and told him everything she'd heard from Chelsea. Her husband tried to reassure her. "Don't believe it, honey. It's not true. Maybe she's just jealous of us. I love you very much. I had only 2 women in my life. My first wife is in the past and you are in my present and future." These words reassured Teresa. She knew that after his separation from his first wife, Felix had been alone for a long time until he met her. They had a son who was 10 years old now, and all that time Felix was a wonderful father and always wanted to spend as much time as possible with his family. So Teresa really did not understand why Chelsea had made up all that nonsense about her husband cheating. A few weeks passed after that conversation. One day when she was walking home from work, Teresa saw her husband's car cross the street. She wanted to walk up, but suddenly she saw Felix coming out of a store and holding the hand of a young girl. Felix put the shopping bags in the back seat and hugged the girl happily, who wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him on the cheek. Then she got into the front seat and in a moment, the car was out of sight. Teresa began to feel bad. She staggered to the nearest bench and taking out her phone, dialed Chelsea's number. Chelsea, learning that her friend had finally discovered her husband's infidelity, immediately came to pick her up and drag Teresa to the bar. There, Chelsea explained to Teresa that the situation could not be left like that. She insisted that her friend urgently needed to shake things up, get herself in shape and get revenge on Felix by cheating on him too. "What's the big deal? You'll see. You'll feel better right away, and you'll be on the same level with him," insisted Chelsea. "Chelsea, she's so young and beautiful, not like me," mumbled Teresa dejectedly. "Come on, a lot of guys are looking at you. Your son is at his grandmother's, so you have the full right to have fun. Come on, make up your mind." And Teresa agreed. There was a weekend ahead, and the women, having turned off their phones, gladly plunged into the world of entertainment. She and Chelsea visited a spa. Teresa had her hair done and bought new clothes. Seeing herself in her new look, Teresa was happy to realize that she looked quite attractive. She and her friends spent a whole weekend in clubs. Men were paying attention to her, and it gave her a vengeful joy. Initially, she was uncomfortable in the company of strange men, but soon she began to behave freely and did not think of Felix at all. Felix spent all those days looking for his wife wherever he could, but to no avail. And when on Monday morning he was about to go to the police, the door opened and Teresa appeared on the doorstep. Felix looked at her and did not recognize her at all. He tried to find out where she'd been all this time, but she just brushed him off and closed herself in the bathroom. After a while, she came out, silently got ready for work and left. Felix just stood there, stared at her with an incomprehensible look on his face. 2 days later, Felix had to go on a business trip. This time he was packing up by himself, since Teresa had stopped doing anything around the house. And in response to his endless inquiries, she only shrugged her shoulders and cast contemptuous glances. Getting ready to leave, Felix told his wife that he would not be back until Monday, but she looked at him indifferently and went into the kitchen. Felix left, slamming the door loudly. Having finished his business trip early, he returned home on Saturday morning. Quietly, so as not to wake his wife, he went into the kitchen, cooked himself breakfast, and when he looked into the bedroom, he found Teresa sleeping in the arms of another man. Felix came over and pulled the blanket off of them. The man jerked sharply in surprise and began to gather his things in horror. Teresa, on the other hand, was calm. She stood up, threw on her robe, and said, "What are you looking at? Yes, I've cheated on you, and it felt really good." She turned to her lover with a condescending tone, asking him to leave, promising to call. Then she picked up a comb and with a nonchalant look began to tidy herself up. Felix, meanwhile, became furious and demanded an explanation. "All right, I'll explain," replied Teresa proudly. "I've seen you, Felix, with that girl you bought gifts for. She kissed you in gratitude, and then you left together. And this morning is my revenge on you. Now we're even. I hope it hurts you as much as it hurt me then." "Could you have asked me?" asked an astonished Felix. "Why, to listen to another lie?" "I see. Well then, listen to the truth now. I've never cheated on you. Do you hear me? Never. And that girl is my daughter. Do you realize what I'm saying? The daughter from my first marriage. Not long ago, I didn't know she existed. And just this past weekend, I wanted to tell you everything and introduce you to her. A month ago, my ex-wife Olivia called me and asked me to meet her in the park. She came to the meeting with a girl she introduced as my daughter, Peggy. Olivia explained that she hadn't wanted to get involved in my life before, so she'd hidden it. But now the situation had changed. It turned out that she had the last stages of cancer. Olivia didn't want our daughter to be alone, so she introduced us. She even bought an apartment in the city for her and asked me just to look after her. Of course I agreed." Felix was silent for a minute, and then told her that a week ago he and Peggy accompanied Olivia to the train station, and then decided to go to Felix's house to introduce Peggy to Teresa. He really hoped that his wife would find common ground with his daughter, and they could become friends. But things didn't go according to plan. "You weren't home, and after walking Peggy to her apartment, I started looking for you. And now you're standing here in front of me, accusing me of something I didn't do." There was no trace of Teresa's fighting spirit. She suddenly realized that she'd made the worst mistake in her life and bent over as if in pain. She fell to her knees and burst into tears. 6 months passed. Felix lived with his daughter and had not seen his wife for a long time. She sometimes called him and in tears begged for his forgiveness. Their son often visited his father and enjoyed playing with Peggy, with whom they quickly became friends. Sometimes he even stayed overnight there, and they were never bored together. Teresa, on the other hand, felt lonely. She missed her husband, but realized that she was alone to blame for what had happened. The woman bemoaned herself for that thoughtless action that had ruined her life so easily, and every day she hoped that one day her husband would forgive her.